Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about those who are constantly telling you that we are with the experts. I just follow the experts. I'm just believing in what 97% of the folks believe, not the 3%, the weird outliers like you. This came up with Sam Harris in a Lex Friedman interview, and he was talking about 97% and all of us. There is certainly truth to that. Many of us just believe the majority around us. And that's, of course, a key point in terms of why the phrase, well, I'm just believing the 97% is wrong. And the first issue is that how do you know that you're believing in the 97%, right? The people that are walking around say, well, I'm just following the experts. Where did you, a non-expert, get this impression that you know what the consensus is in a field that you're not particularly familiar with? Right? Where did you come to have that belief? How do you come to believe and have evidence that there's this consensus? Well, you do it on the basis of sampling the social connections around you, right? All that you really know, typically, unless there's been formal polls, and in the cases of most of the cases in COVID, there weren't formal polls of the experts concerning what they believed, you were just going by your position within the social network. Those that were around you in your social network, and particularly the disproportionately high reputation folks in your social network. That's all that you really know. And in fact, those of us in the out group, we had our own social networks, and we also, in our social networks, it was probably 97% that believed in us, but we were in a position where we realized that you guys were in a groupthink. Of course you think, if you're in a groupthink, that everybody believes like me. That's the first signs of it. I would never use as evidence that, hey, all the people in my social network around me agree with me. This is not an argument, right? That's the first problem. So the very belief, the very presumed belief that they have that, look, I'm with the consensus, you have to doubt that. How do you possibly believe that you truly are with the consensus when all that you can really sample are the reputations of those around you and those that are high reputation, what they're saying? All you really know is the social network that you're sitting in the pool of, right? Secondly, if you have a proclivity, and we've talked about this before, if you have a proclivity of any kind to favoring the consensus, and if we all had such a proclivity to favor the consensus, supposing that we really knew what the consensus was, well, this is dangerous, right? That proclivity just means that a small degree of consensus tends to become a larger consensus. And that only makes it more likely that it will become larger. Still, this is a positive feedback loop in the bad way that just leads to groupthink. Right? So this is not the way that you want to walk around behaving. You should be taking things at their own merits. And of course, the fact you could say, I realize there's a consensus, but I need to go figure it out, especially when there's as much at stake as there was for COVID. Right? And a third kind of point that it occurs to me is that forget about consensus per se. This was 97%, or in many cases, it felt to those of us who are arguing against COVID, it felt like it was 99.9%. We're all saying the same thing. They were beating as one. And when you see consensus of that scale about something so immensely complicated, concerning an entirely novel, supposedly, even if you presumed it was entirely novel, well, then how the heck do all of these people have such strong consensus about something they have no idea about? Concerning confidence about interventions that were told to us was something you should never do just a year before. How is it that they all became so much on the same page? So if you're one of the people who sees this kind of overwhelming consensus about something that we had no consensus about, in fact, it was the opposite a year before, alarm bells should go off that you are in the middle of something that's gone wrong. You're part of a collective hysteria, a groupthink, a moral contagion. Something has infected the nature and made ill the very reputation network, the free expression network that should be working is malfunctioning. Finally, if you thought that it wasn't malfunctioning, God came down, him or herself, and told you, look, it really is the consensus. There's no doubt, and it's not because, there's this groupthink or anything. If you had had any commitment to civil liberties and what you were allowed to do to other individuals, that perception of consensus would have been stopped by having that firm belief that your ingenious schemes don't allow you and give you the right to violate the civil liberties of others. And that was your science moment. If you haven't gotten a copy of Dr. Tim Barber and my book, Expressly Human, you can find it at Amazon and other places where great books are sold.